Jessica. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?
Hey, I'm Jack.
Hey, Jack. So what brings you in today?
This is just part of my, my whole routine, like what the judge ordered me to do. Like I was released on, my own recognizance after I got a DUI, and I was told to go to alcohol treatment classes, and therapy was part of the condition. So as long as I'm doing that, then I stay out of jail. So here I am.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you just a few questions to kind of get some idea of where you're coming from, what life's been like for you. So how old are you, Jack?
I'm 38.
38. What do you do for a living and what do you do for fun?
I'm a carpenter. And for fun, I used to like go out and drink like with my buddies and stuff, but obviously I can't really do that anymore. I've been seeing this woman for a few years. We're in a, I guess, pretty steady relationship, so I spend a lot of time at her place. I like to golf. I like to play poker. I like to gamble, which was an issue for a while, but I got a lot better with that. Spend some time with family when I can. I try to visit my mother every now and then. She's kind of getting old, so I've been, helping out with her a lot, helping my sisters out.
Sounds like you're a good son. It's kind of hard when our parents age and we don't really have the tools to equip us to know exactly what to do. You said you have sisters. How many siblings do you have in total?
I have 2 sisters.
Okay. Are they older or younger?
Older.
Okay. So you're the baby of the family. So, it sounds like family's pretty important to you.
Yeah, I don't know, I went through some crap for a while. Like, it all kind of started when I was a teenager, and, they all could have easily turned their backs on me. Like, it happened to some of my buddies who, we all got caught up in the wrong thing, and their families just weren't supportive. And
when you say you got caught up in some crap, do you feel comfortable sharing a little more with me about what that was?
Yeah, I mean, back in high school, we just liked to party, and we just got like really out of control one time, and we all got arrested for trespassing, and then after that it all kind of went downhill. Like, we just really overdid it with like the partying and the drinking, and then it just kind of was a downward spiral ever since then. Like, I wasn't able to graduate, then I ended up getting my GED, so I mean that worked out. But yeah.
How do you feel now when you think about that incident? When you think about what kind of role it plays in your life now, how do you see that?
I just kind of regret, I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, I get everything happens for a reason, and, they say in AA, like, oh, God, gives his biggest challenges to his, like, toughest, so whatever that quote is. But I don't know, and people say, oh, no regrets, everything that happened was meant to happen. But I just regret, like, I really just want to go back in time and just not have made those choices. I just feel like I would be in a much better place, and I'm still paying the price. I mean, clearly, I didn't, like the DUI, and
sounds like you have a hard time kind of reconciling what happened in your 20s, or I'm sorry, in your teens, I apologize, with kind of the way your life is now. It sounds like there's some kind of, at least from what I'm hearing, some kind of link between that initial incident when you're teens and kind of right now. Do you feel like that maybe started you on a bad path of some sort?
Yeah, I guess.
Sounds like it had an impact on you. So what I'm trying to figure out more is how that affected you over time. Is it something did it drastically affect your relationships, your schoolwork? What was the impact at the time?
That's a good question, I guess. like, I don't know, I guess when I was a teenager, and this is what my mom has told me, this is what, like, you know, like my lawyer told me, I think just when I was a teenager, I was on this kick about how just like the rules don't apply to me, and you know, I just didn't think there were any consequences. I just kind of thought I was invincible and I can do whatever. And then when everything just started to catch up with me, I realized like, no, like this shit's gonna follow me everywhere. You know, this has really impacted me, and you know, I try to forget about it. I try to move on. Like, I know that I can't go back and change anything that I did, but at the same time, it just, like, having to like tell people, and not that I have to tell every single person I meet, but you know, people remember me. Like, I run into people, you know, back in from high school. Like, I just had, you know, my 10-year reunion, and people know, like, people, you know, I don't have to say it, like, they know how I was, and I think they look at me now, and they, you know, I don't have to flat out say, oh yeah, I got a DUI, but I think they can just look at, like, my you know, something about me just.
So you feel like that situation has kind of followed you in a lot of ways?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Like, I can't stop thinking about how if I just didn't, you know, if I just didn't drink that night and climb up on that roof of our middle school and get picked up by the cops, and, you know, I remember my dad beat my ass too, and then he ended up walking out like 3 years later.
Was that pretty typical of Dad? Was he pretty harsh punishment?
Yeah.
Or was it kind of a, yeah?
Yeah, no, he was. He didn't put up with any bullshit.
Tell me a little more about your relationship with Dad and then your relationship with Mom.
My dad just always was, like, when I was little, like, he was always just trying to get me to man up. Like, he thought I was like a little sissy girl because I wasn't really good at sports, and like I wasn't really into a lot of like manly, like, everything was like, this is what men do, like fishing and like, you know, golfing. I ended up getting into golf years later, like I told you, but he just was always worried that I was going to turn into just like a, you know, just not like a tough guy. And yeah, and anytime I did something wrong, he used to hit me and smack me around. I mean, it wasn't hard, like, it wasn't anything that, you know, anybody would consider like abusive, I guess. He just used to like rough me up a little bit.
Yeah.
But and then my mom, like, it was a lot more nurturing, I guess that's the word. But you know, like, my dad wasn't really great to her either. He never hit her or anything, but you know, he still like talked down to her and like was really like verbally abusive, and he was always good to my sisters though. That never was an issue. I think it was just because I was the boy, like he kind of felt like, you know.
Yeah. So it sounds like you maybe feel a little bit closer to your mom than you did to Dad. So it's kind of hard to please him.
Yeah, in some ways. Like, my mom was more nurturing, but I wouldn't say that it was. I don't know. Like, part of me kind of feels like my dad kind of put me in my place a little bit more than my mom did. My mom, I think, was a little bit more passive, like, which was good in some ways, but she never really, like, I don't know, like, my dad was always the one, like, pushing me to, like, be better, and then my mom, I think, was just happy with, like, me, you know, with just mediocre. Like, my mom.
Kind of interesting, you've got those two kind of, like, polar opposite experiences happening there.
Yeah.
Dad's pushing you really hard to be a certain way, a manly way, as we'd say, as you said, and Mom's just kind of accepting of whatever you offer. That can be pretty hard for a teenager to figure out, because, you know, I think it's hard because two parents always have a different parenting style, and you've kind of got to get them to mesh together. And when you've got two that are so opposite, like your dad and your mom,
Yeah.
you know, that can create a lot of kind of conflict in you as to, well, do I go ahead and do this and please my dad and fit myself into this mold, or do I just kind of do whatever and, you know, see what happens? And I noticed what you said before about feeling regret and kind of feeling conflicted about whether or not, you know, kind of you could have changed something if you could go back. One thing I want to do as we work together is kind of look at how those past events have kind of helped shape your present. and how we can kind of make some meaning out of that and create choices going forward that are going to help you be able to live more in the present and not focus so much on mistakes that were made in the past or events that occurred. Because the no regrets thing, I'll be honest, I have some trouble with that too. I think it's, for a lot of people, you know, it works, but it can also make you feel kind of, if you do feel regrets, it kind of make you feel a little guilty about that.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit, if you're comfortable, about what led up to the DUI and what was that like, and let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, we were just, my buddies and I, we were all like out at a bar one night, watching the Pats game. We were all drinking, having a good time. And here's where more regret comes in. So I should have just like taken an Uber. I should have just taken a cab there. I drove in like an idiot. I knew I was gonna drink too. Like I knew, and you know, I thought at the time, oh, okay, maybe somebody would be around to drive my car home. But then it's also like, you know, like I knew that I was gonna be going there with my buddies, and I knew that they were all gonna be drinking, and like so. I think I knew in the back of my head, you know what, everybody's gonna be shit-faced, like. But still, I drove in, and you know, we were all the way in Boston, so I didn't want to just like leave my car there, you know, like I could have just left my car, like that would have been like probably the right thing to do, just leave it and deal with it later, even if I get a ticket, even if I get towed, that's better.
Still better than.
But all I wanted to do was just like get home, you know, just be in my own bed, have my car there. And yeah, no, and after, like, I had maybe, like, 12 beers in me. Like, I felt okay, I wasn't, like, completely, you know, I don't know. Like, I remember, like, everything, like, I remember getting in the car, but I guess at one point, I did something that got a cop's attention, like, I don't really know if I, like.
So on your drive home?
Yeah. So then I remember seeing the flashing lights right behind me, and there was like nothing worse than that. I knew it was coming.
You knew it wasn't good.
And so then the cop pulled me over, and he was like, license and registration, gave it to him, and he's like, you've been doing some drinking tonight, and like an idiot, I said no, but I feel like I should have just said yes, because maybe, I don't know. And like he was like, I can smell it on your breath, I can smell it all over you. Made me get out of the car, gave me the test, made me walk on a straight line, and then he was like, all right, like gave me the breathalyzer, and then he was like, yeah, you're under arrest, and took me to jail, called the tow company.
When you think back to that night, I'm going to ask you a few questions just to kind of get at some of the root of not, you know, why you got the DUI, but like I want to try and see if we can together just figure out some things surrounding it. So you said, I heard you say that you knew that you should have just taken an Uber. You had other options as far as driving. Did you think about those things before you made the decision to drive, or was it kind of like you were driving, you're on your way to the game, and you're like, you know, man, I really should have taken an Uber? Was it kind of a conscious thing, or maybe an after the fact, or something totally different?
I mean, it was conscious, because like I was thinking about it when I was driving to the bar. I was like, because I know I'm going to get hammered tonight. I mean, it's the Pats game. It's like, you know, we're all going to our favorite spot. Like but, you know, I've driven drunk before, and it was never a problem, so I think I just thought it was going to end up being one of those nights where it's like I could probably get away with it. I could probably just get home, and so that was my whole thing. So yeah, I was like, I just thought about the possibility, because I have a couple of friends who have gotten DUIs. So, but still, I don't know, it was just.
So knowing that that was the case, you know, at some point you might have been late to the game, but there is that option of turning around and getting an Uber. You know, there's choices that you could make, many choices. There's the choice to maybe turn around and get the Uber, the choice to park where you're at, take the T the rest of the way, the choice to drive in. So there were choices, and, you know, you chose one. What once you realized that there were different choices you could make, what was the biggest motivator in making the choice that you made to continue driving to the bar?
I think just like wanting to just get there. Like I just thought it was like the fastest. Like you know, like I know my driving. Like I know that I would get there in a timely. You know, like taking the train would have like probably, you know, added like an extra 50 minutes to the commute. Taking an Uber, like sometimes like they go different routes, and sometimes like they drive slow. So I just, you know, I was running late that night. I just wanted to get there. I didn't want to miss out on anything. Like that was pretty much it. Like I know, I mean, thinking back, it's just really, really hard for me to think about. Like I
can imagine. Well, but one thing I want to say is the goal here is not for us to kind of feel shame around it. And I know it's hard to talk about this incident. The reason I'm kind of getting you to talk about it and getting us to kind of connect on this incident is more not so that to make you feel bad or to focus on it, but to kind of focus on what leads you to make those type of decisions and what leads to those decisions that aren't maybe great when there are other options available. So I heard you say that speed was a factor, knowing I could get there, I would get there on time, I wouldn't miss any of the game. And logically speaking, I'm sure that that's true. What would have been for you the consequence if you had missed 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the game? Like, what would have been the undesirable outcome?
probably just missing out on something, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't get to see like my buddies all the time, so it's just like I just wanted to get there. I was just kind of anxious about getting there. Like I wanted to just like, it's all the way in Boston. Like I get sometimes stressed out driving into Boston. There was a lot of traffic that night too, so I just wanted to get there.
So it sounds like both the speed factor of just wanting to be there, the factor of you don't get to see your friends often, so that kind of camaraderie of hanging out with the guys. And then also, you mentioned being afraid of missing out, just missing out on the fun of it all. And then I think about what you told me earlier, which is that incident in, did you say it was middle school that it happened?
High school.
High school, when you got arrested. Oh, you said you climbed up on a middle school.
Yeah.
So, when you made that decision to kind of do that, what was your thought process at that point?
No, God, that was a while ago.
It's okay if you don't remember completely, or if it's okay if you need
some
time
to
think about it.
It's just, wow, I gotta like do a little bit of going back in time.
Take your time.
Thanks.
I'll be here when you're ready.
Just thinking about how stupid we were. We just had too much time on our hands, like, honestly, nothing better to do. I don't know, all I can think of is like, we were just like screwing around one night, Friday night, nothing to do. I think we were all carrying like 40s, like 40 ounces. And, we were just drinking, like, staggering around downtown. And one of my buddies was just like, dude, let's just like go up on the roof and just like hang out. And I guess we were being loud. I guess one of the neighbors called the police, making a noise complaint. Cops showed up, arrested us. Parents bailed us out though. I mean, we weren't really, I don't know. That's really all I remember. I just think we all just wanted to do something like kind of crazy, just to like have a story, you know what I mean? Like I think we just wanted to be able to tell people like, we just wanted to tell people like what we did just to be cool or whatever. It's just dumb.
So it was kind of a situation where you wanted that friendship, that kind of bonding experience. Does that sound pretty accurate? The idea of, you know, doing that silly thing with your friends, even though you know maybe it wasn't the smartest idea.
I mean, you saying that, I just kind of like wanted to fit in, because it's like they were like my friends for like years. You know, it's not like we all like kind of made the decision together. It wasn't like my buddies were like, oh hey, like Jack, like you want to like do this, or you know, you're not cool if you don't do this. Like, I'm like what, you know.
Yeah, sometimes peer pressure doesn't have to or look that overt, you know. I mean, that's one form of it, but another form of it is kind of when you see your friends kind of all doing something, or when there's an idea or an activity happening, and maybe you don't really want to go along with it, but sometimes you know, things happen where we kind of just see that happening, and we don't really know how to kind of stop ourselves and take ourselves out of it, even if it's not, you know, we know somehow deep inside that it may not be the best idea. Do you see any kind of parallels between that decision you made back in high school and the decision you made recently that led to the OUI? Talk to me about some of the things that were the same, some of the feelings that were the same.
I think the feeling of just like, I don't know, I like being included in things. I like you're right, like they're my friends and I know that they wouldn't turn their backs on me, but I like, you know, being on the same page as everybody. I like to kind of, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain in a way that's like, you know, because I've never been like a, you know, someone who, like I'm not, you know, I was never somebody who really like felt pressured, I guess. Like I never like did anything that I didn't want to do just to like look cool or act or be cool. But, you know, I still, you know, their friendship meant a lot to me, I guess, and I just felt like if I, you know, kind of joining in with them and everything they were doing, it would just kind of validate our friendship. And, you know, because I don't, you know, like I get along with my sisters now, and like, you know, I told you about my parents and how, you know, my dad like put me in my place a lot, but and my mom was just a little bit kind of naive about everything. So I don't know, like back then my family wasn't really like you know, there wasn't a whole lot for me to go home to. So I think, you know, back then and even now my friends were kind of like family. Like I just felt better being around them. It was hard for me to be at home, and I just kind of felt like if I didn't do what they were doing, like I could have said, like going back to that night, I honestly could have said like, no guys, like I gotta get home, but there was nothing to go home to. Like there was nothing, like, you know, I didn't want to go home. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not saying I had like this compelling desire to necessarily climb up on the roof, but at the same time, you know, it seemed to be kind of the lesser of the two evils. Like it just seemed like the better option. Yeah.
Desire to kind of belong in that group. So actually, I hear the doorbell. I have another client coming in. They're a little early for their appointment, but I want to make sure I let them in.
That's fine.
So would you mind if we take a break for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Candy. What's her name? Khaleesi. Khaleesi? Yeah.
Okay, so we're just gonna finish up this session in like 5 minutes.
Yes, I will take it.
You can sit there, you can sit there, wherever you want, yeah? Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's alright.
The doorbell, can be a little tough. So, before I left, we were talking about kind of how much that feeling of like belonging is really important to you.
Yeah.
Do you have other ways in your life or other kind of groups or situations where you feel like you kind of feel at home or like comfortable?
Mainly just around my friends.
Mhm.
You know, around my friends, like back at work, like I had a really phenomenal boss at my job. I couldn't have asked for a better boss, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I like what I do and I'm good at what I do, so I always kind of, I feel good about working. I mean, I've been off for a couple of weeks now, just kind of dealing with like the whole massacre that happened, but
Massacre. Do you mean the OUI?
yeah, and just
Sorry,
like
I
everything.
wasn't sure if you meant.
Yeah, no, that was probably like a stupid word choice.
No,
but like,
not at all. Not at all.
No, I mean that, and just kind of like all the repercussions that came along with it, like going to court and like dealing with like the AA meetings and having to go to treatment, and it's just been like a huge mess. And, so.
How's your boss been with you since this happened?
He's been, most bosses would have like fired the person, I'm sure, if they got a DUI, but he was able to like kind of pull some strings and keep me there.
Mhm.
Under like a conditional basis though, but I mean he like knows I do good work. It's not like I ever showed up to work drunk. It's not like I ever, had a problem like at work or, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And, I've been with that company for like almost 20 years now, so, he knows I'm dedicated. He knows I'm,
How does it feel to know that your boss really values you, not just as a worker, but as a person?
Feels good because he's like a big deal. He's like really well respected in our town. Everybody knows him, so the fact that this like really respected guy feels respects me. Like
Mhm.
it means a lot to me. Like it's nice to know because it just because of somebody like him who's so great and everybody kind of like bows down to him and everybody knows him and everybody calls him up to like anytime anybody needs service done, they call him and ask specifically for him.
Mhm.
Because he does such great work. So I feel like if he thinks that I do great work, then I feel like I'm in good company.
So it's kind of by association type of thing.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel to be kind of like associated with somebody who's so respected? What do you think that says about you?
I think it means I'm like I have a good work ethic. So I think if you have a good work ethic, then you're, like anybody who can wake up at like 7 o'clock in the morning every day and just go to work and go above and beyond at their job, and like I feel like you must be like a good, not entirely, but I think you must be a pretty like decent human being in order to kind of be able to do that. Like you do good work and you respect everybody. Like you're good to the customers, you're good to the people you work with. You don't complain. That's one thing he says about me. He's like, you never complain. Like a bunch of like the guys that we work with, like it's always something with them, and I always say like don't complain about things that you have control over. Like if you're not happy at your job, like leave, like don't complain about it, you know what I mean? So that's something that I kind of like always reminded myself, and I think it's kind of a good mindset to have, so it means a lot to me, like working hard and stuff.
That's good. It does sound like you have a really great work ethic.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's part of what, makes your boss feel really confident in you, but I'm sure there's other things too.
Yeah.
I asked you initially if there's any place else you feel that sense of belonging like you do with your friends, and I especially really was listening when you said when you were a kid and you made that decision to go up on the roof, kind of the lesser of two evils, that or going home. you know, and I know Dad has kind of been pretty hard on you growing up. So I see that feeling of belonging someplace with a group of people is really important, and it seems like you have that at work to some degree.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good way to look at it. I never really like put my job in the equation. I always kind of like, I think I was just so hyper focused on, you know, everything that was going on with like my, you know, like the DUI, and then going back to like some stuff about my family and my friends, and I kind of felt like that was all that kind of defined me. But I never really thought that like work really would play into my identity so much. I'm using terminology that I've learned in therapy before, so don't mind me. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that you can see that work's a big part of who you are, and that it's a, you know, a good way to kind of cope with some of the tough stuff that's going on, and, you know, a place to kind of, I don't want to say escape because it's a job, but, you know, a place where you feel like you fit in.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds like going forward, you know, I mean, we haven't really discussed your substance use or anything yet. That's something maybe deal with a little bit more in future sessions, but it sounds like, to me, at least from what we've talked about today, that the key for you is finding a place where you feel like you belong. And then in that sense, it's maybe, do you think it might be easier for you to tackle some of those issues if you're in a place where you feel like you belong?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
I do want to ask before we end our session today, because you had mentioned right when you came in that you used to have an issue with gambling and betting. Tell me a little more about that. And like what it started, how you got over it, how you were able to conquer that.
I just kind of like got over that on my own, surprisingly. I know a lot of people. I mean, it started where I would just like, I used to like blow my entire paychecks on lottery tickets. Because one time I hit 1,000, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. I just thought like, oh, that'll happen again. You know what I mean? And so from that point on, I just like kept buying them, just hoping I was gonna win again. And then I would, you know, I would go up to Foxwoods or like Mohegan on the weekends with my friends, and I would like blow my savings there. And it just got like really addicting after a while. It just like, it started off as kind of something fun, like kind of buying a scratch ticket here and there, like whatever. But yeah, it got really out of control, and I realized it when it's like I was overdrawn in my checking account all the time. I had no savings. I was having to ask like my mom and my sisters for money, and it was just like it. And that's when, you know, like it was that, and then in addition to the fact that I was kind of drinking a lot too, like then it was just everything. Like I don't know.
So can you think of a defining incident or like a point in your mind where you realized this has got to stop?
I think it's just when like I had no money really to like kind of fall back on. Like I think it was just kind of like I didn't really have a lot of money to like go out. Like I was, you know, the fact that I was gambling so much, it was cutting into the time that I had like with my friends. Like I wouldn't have money to go out and like drink with them or do anything. You know, I could barely buy like just groceries, like milk and eggs and bread, and like all it's like my rent. Like thankfully my mom was helping me out with my rent for a while, so that wasn't really an issue. But yeah, I just think when I was just so broke all the time, and I realized that I couldn't really do much, because you know.
So it sounds like, and this is really interesting because before we have been talking about how that sense of belonging and feeling like you have a group that you're like home with is really important to you.
Yeah.
But in the situation that you just mentioned, kind of the catalyst for you to be able to stop gambling was the loss of independence. You know, being able to pay for your own groceries and pay for your rent and kind of take care of yourself. And it sounds like when that stopped being a thing you could do, you know, when you started to have to rely on other people for help, that was kind of the little thing that kind of snapped you out of gambling.
Yeah.
And I commend you because it's not always easy to, you know, kick an addiction or a problem anyway, but especially when, you know, you're doing it on your own. So I think it's interesting to hear you say that losing that independence was a big thing for you. So it sounds like we've got kind of two themes going on here. Your need to be independent and feel successful and happy within yourself, and also that kind of need to belong to a group and feel kind of fulfilled in those social relationships. So I think going forward, probably working on those two, kind of integrating those two aspects of your life might be a good way to help you figure out what's really important and keep you from staying stuck in those past events.
Right.
Because everybody goes through their life and makes mistakes, and we all do things we regret. Even if people like to say no regrets, I think most people probably have some.
Yeah.
So, I think that it would be definitely good for you to continue, coming in if you'd like to.
Yeah, you're really nice. You put a lot of things in perspective for me.
I appreciate it. Before you leave today, I just wanted to ask you, so what other things are you doing right now? What treatment are you engaging in as far as the OUI? What are the requirements? Just so I can make sure that our therapy kind of fits into that nicely.
Yeah, well, the insurance, I think, pays for like 8 sessions.
Okay.
So, and then, I go to AA once a week, and yeah, like they mainly said, like, I don't know, I forgot like what they were saying, like they said that I needed like a certain type of therapy, like not a certain type, but just anything that could kind of like you were doing, like anything that can kind of like get to the bottom of when all the crap started, you know what I mean, all of like that internal stuff, like everything going on with my family and stuff, and like my job, and so I mean it seems like you're doing that, so yeah, they pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Well, it was really nice meeting with you, John. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll hopefully see you again next week, same time.
Yeah, I'll be there.
All right, great. Thank you.
Bye.